show and podcast. I am your host, Richard Franzi, and this is episode number 1099. 70 million people in the world are in need of a wheelchair but cannot afford one. Free Wheelchair Mission is a nonprofit organization that provides wheelchairs at no cost to people in developing nations. I've invited President and CEO Don Schoendorfer back to the show to talk to us about how they are transforming lives through the gift of mobility. Don, welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you for having me back.
It's great to have you back, my friend, and my engineer wants you to speak a little closer to the microphone so we can rock and roll. So for those that might have missed, because you were an early guest here on the radio show, I have to go back and see how long ago it was, but we've stayed in touch for a number of years.
Yes.
Tell the audience a bit about your path to this organization.
Well, I was sort of born to be an engineer, and I studied hard to get a good education, and I did well designing and getting products through our FDA for medical hospital use, and was very happy doing that for 25 years. Right. And then having the experience of having daughters, teenage daughters, brought my wife and me to our knees, and we realized that we had problems we couldn't solve ourselves, and we wound up surrendering. Okay. And coming back to church, and that was Mariners Church, and it's a long story about why, but and I was just going to church on a Sunday and going back to work on a Monday like the normal guy. It was almost like I didn't go to church on Sunday. Okay. And then I started to feel after a couple of years of that, I have to get off the sidewalk here. I've got to get out into the road and start doing some things. So tried tutoring, tried mentoring, and I wasn't good at either one of them. And just one day woke up and said, why would I ever consider I would be good at those? I'm not that kind of person. I'm an introverted engineer. Uh-huh. And so I'm thinking, I've got these great gifts that God gave me. What can I use them for? And I can invent things. I can make things work. I can get things proven that they do work. So I went back to thinking of a lady that my wife and I saw in '79. This was 20 years ago, before this. Okay. This renaissance. Right. Trying to get across the road on her stomach. What? Crawling on the road in a small part of an old city in Morocco, and even then I was concerned, and I carried that image around for many years. That's haunting, actually. Thinking about why is it this way, and why is nobody caring around her and doing nothing about it? And it was just we walked away thinking this is life in a developing world. Right. But it took a long time, like 20 years, to put that in perspective of what can I do about it. Uh-huh. And maybe that, I'm not so sure why, I started looking into wheelchairs, and I could use the internet for a research tool back in the late 90s, and I could find out that there's this tremendous need. We've converged on a number now with 70 million. Right. But the fact is it's not known, and it's more than that. But people going without a wheelchair, how could that be? It's unacceptable. Right. And, in this country, it's hard to imagine crawling on the ground. Yes. And yet this is a common thing for these 70 million people. That's a big number. And I looked into, who was doing what about it. And there are people, organizations that spent 20 years working really hard, putting their heart, their souls into solving this problem. But they were using used American wheelchairs, very expensive ones, too. And they were broken down, so they had to renovate them. Or they were buying traditional wheelchairs and trying to solve it either way, and not only in this country, but in European countries, Africa, the other countries. There was probably 30 organizations working on it. I added up all that they had accomplished in 1999, and it was 100,000 wheelchairs. Oh my goodness! And that we are using the number 100 million then, and you can convert it to 70 million now, but it's a fraction of a percent. Right. And it wasn't. I could see they weren't going to get there from there, and they don't even. I don't mean to interrupt you, Don Schoendorfer, but it sounds like that may not be the right tool to solve the problem either. And I didn't realize that at the time. Okay. It wasn't until I got a chance to try to walk in the developing countries' terrain, and I realized how tough this terrain is. And these wheelchairs are not designed for that. There's no need to have that kind of design of a chair in the United States. We have curbs and ramps and elevators and all this other stuff. So I went about it the least expensive way I could, thinking there's a big number we've got to get up off the ground. We just got to get people up off the ground. Yeah, there's a lot of other things you can do, but if I was one of these 70 million, I would really be happy if I was just not in the mud. That's a very different life, right? Yeah, a very different attitude or perspective about life too. And so I got the least expensive chair I could find and least expensive tires, which are bicycle tires because they're made by the millions.
Okay, now hold on a second. You said the least expensive chair?
Yeah, a white resin lawn chair.
Okay, so put that in your mind, audience.
Yeah, it's a white resin chair like you sit in a restaurant or in a patio.
Right.
And it's pretty comfortable.
Okay.
And you can't adjust it, and that was the disadvantage we had, but we figured at least for adults it would work fine, and connected the two and got off with the idea that we could make this chair for $40, $30. It wasn't, we didn't include shipping or
a white resin chair, 4 wheels.
Yeah, and a footrest and...
Okay. What type of wheels?
Mountain bike tires, nice wide tread tires.
Stuff that would be...
Yeah, because that would be an advantage, even though I didn't know it at the time. It was, because the ground is soft.
Right.
Muddy and, and it's not
harsh.
Paved.
Right.
And all of that, they're built for they call them mountain bikes so you can take a mountain on with them. And so they have a strong frame and a strong rim and strong spokes. And so that's what we got started on in 2001. And frankly, I wasn't going to do anything more than give 100 away and write a paper about the safety and efficacy of this new approach to solving mobility.
Were you still working?
Yes.
Okay, so this was a hobby.
Yeah,
okay.
I had 100 of these prototype wheelchairs in the garage, and everybody just wanted me to get them out of the garage. It was embarrassing to open the door. And I had a chance to take 4 of them to India with a mission trip with Mariners Church. And the very first chair we gave away it's just completely rearranged my life, but also
seeing it.
And also the people with me, because no one else could see how this was going to fit. Because it doesn't look like a wheelchair, and certainly not a conventional wheelchair.
Right, like Western, right.
And I had no answers. People would ask me. They're trying to help you by asking questions that they think you probably should be thinking about, like who's going to pay for them, who's going to give them away, who's going to do the training, who's going to do the shipping, how are you going to get them into the country, all this stuff. And I just want to do an experiment. I just want to prove that this is going to work. I'm going to write a paper, and I'm going to go back to my regular thinking of,
right.
And that'll be the end. That's all I'll need to do.
Okay.
Well, I got back from that trip to India, and while I was gone, the company I was working for went bankrupt.
Oh.
So, also when I gave the first wheelchair away, I was able to get a group of Christian mission people in India into a Hindu village, and the excitement of getting this chair for this 11-year-old child was so great that the pastor was able to share the gospel, which I thought was, okay, that seems like a typical thing to do. Why not? Because that's why I was there.
Uh-huh.
And he later told me he's never seen people pay attention to him before. They usually mock him or they walk away, and yet these people were all ears because they're trying to figure out why is this boy who's got cerebral palsy and hardly ever sees daylight is getting this brand new wheelchair. And our partners realized that wheelchair got the door open. And so the next day they're driving me all around Chennai, India, showing me all the disabled people that they wanted to give wheelchairs to. They wanted to be our distribution partner. I didn't even know I was going to have a problem with a distribution partner, but the connection was made by them. And they said, and they've been a partner ever since, giving out trailers because it enables them to do their Christian work.
Okay.
It's a perfect match.
Right.
Gets the door open.
So needless to say, you were able to find homes for those first 100 chairs.
Yes. It took about a year.
Okay.
And it was really hard to ship 43 chairs or 45 chairs at a time. And then through people I met at Mariners and, word spread, the reputation spread, or the success spread. So people, actually literally sending me money in the mail for more wheelchairs.
Had you formed Free Wheelchair Mission at that point?
No. See, again, I was fighting with, I've got this career I've worked for 30 years to establish in medical products for the United States, and this is not that. This is something else, and they use the word nonprofit. I had no clue. And so, the Dummy series, they have Excel for Dummies, Microsoft for Dummies. They have a nonprofit for dummies.
Okay.
It was like a Bible for me.
Okay. Wow.
And it just went chapter to chapter and got a nonprofit together, and we came up with the name Free
Okay, so the last date I heard you say was 2001.
Yes.
How long did it take you after that trip to India in 2001 to create Free Wheelchair Mission?
About a year.
Okay. And in that time, you were still kind of
working,
settling on what you were going to do, right?
Well, still trying to work. I was trying to consult and trying to keep food on the table.
Sure.
And my wife was a stay-at-home mom, and then after about 4 months, she decided, I've worked and she's stayed at home for 14 years, and our kids are grown up, so she was going to reverse the plan, and she went back to work, so I could just do this full time.
Wow. Okay, so we're going to take a break here on Critical Mass Radio Show and Podcast. And Don, when we come back, I want to fast forward into today.
Perfect.
And all that you've been able to accomplish since that first trip in 2001, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We're talking with Don Schoendorfer. He is the president and CEO of Free Wheelchair Mission, and we're going to talk more about his mission and the fine work that he's doing around the globe after this word from me. Several hundred former guest websites whose CEOs have been on our show, and their companies put the appearance on their platform somewhere. Since we started our show in 2009, we've reached hundreds of thousands of listeners through our live stream here on octalkradio.net, podcasts, and other platforms that we use. Simply type Critical Mass Radio Show in your favorite podcasting software to be able to start getting our weekly shows with great guests like Don Schoendorfer, who is president and CEO of Free Wheelchair Mission. Don, I said before the break I wanted to kind of catch us up now. So let's talk about the organization here in 2018.
Well, now we have an office near the Spectrum in Irvine. We've got 33 full-time employees. We've got employees in Central America and Vietnam, and we're moving about 80,000 wheelchairs this year, and we've given our millionth wheelchair away about a year ago in Peru.
Congratulations. I remember seeing that. That is unbelievable. So how has the chair changed?
Well, we still offer that chair that I described in the first section.
Okay.
It's dropping down into just a few percent of what we distribute. We've learned along the way that there's if without too much extra funds to spend and money to spend in the design of the chair, you can make it adjustable, and you can make people a lot more comfortable in it, and they're a lot healthier because the chair helps them grow straight and compensate for their whatever disabilities they may have, the physical disabilities. So we made what we call a Gen 2, which is adjustable, different sizes, 4 different sizes. And then we realized, we got to do something about this width, because the chair is a rigid chair. It's strong, very strong. You can throw it from a truck and it'll survive, but you can't get it into a doorway of a lot of people's homes because they don't have the standards like we have, 30-inch doors.
Okay.
They have doorways sometimes you have to turn sideways to get into.
Oh.
And we'd ask them, well, do you want us to assemble your chair inside or outside? Because you're not going to get it through the door. And we've actually seen people move the door because they still want that wheelchair, but that's uncommon. But invariably they say inside. Okay, well, you've given the chair, they're going to use it inside. But, I mean, what can you do about this? I mean, it's a chair. You've got to get it through. So they've had fold-up chairs for 100 years, but they're expensive. They're more expensive. And this way, we figured out a way, with a lot of help from colleagues and supporters all around the world, to have a fold-up chair.
Wow.
And that's our Gen 3. It's a little heavier. It's a little, because it's got that fold-up mechanism, but it turns out to be a very sought-after chair. And it's a little bit more money, so we got to be careful about a lot of places. The rural areas, a rigid frame is valuable.
Okay.
But in the urban areas, especially in places where they need to use public transportation, and some of our partners actually they give away a Gen 2, which is the rigid frame, and then they go visit the person's home and they say, you're okay with a Gen 2 because the doorways are wide, or you need a Gen 3 because I see you're stuck inside.
Okay.
And then they're very carefully using actually what we say good stewardship and giving away the donations we have to the chairs that are appropriately for the appropriate person.
So I have a number of questions. We're not going to be able to get to all of them today, but one thing that I remember that you mentioned to me on the previous time that you were on the radio show is not only how these chairs change the life of the person who needs the chair, but also the family who previously had to spend a lot of energy in helping this immobile person become somewhat more mobile. Can you speak a little bit about that?
I don't think over these years, 17 years, I don't think I've ever seen someone by themselves with a disability that prevents them from walking. I don't think you could survive. Sometimes it's a neighbor.
Wow.
Sometimes it's the community that adopts a
on their
person.
Back or helping.
Well, they're bringing food to them. Maybe they can't carry them. Maybe they're too big to be carried, or maybe they're too frail. But they've been adopted by family members, neighborhoods, churches, and they're sometimes it's 24/7 care that these people have to give to the person with a disability. When you bring a chair, you've removed the burden on the shoulders of lots of people.
Right.
Sometimes 3, sometimes 5, sometimes even more.
Wow.
Because they can now focus on the lives they used to have before they had this responsibility. They can go back to work. Somebody can take, if as a child, you can get the child to school, which you couldn't before because they were too heavy and it was going to break your back to do that. Or you can get somebody to watch over the child, and you can get a job. And then, you know, there's a lot of community services in a developing country. It's amazing. It's hard to see where a family ends and the next family begins. There's a blend.
Wow.
So you get a lot of this community care, but without the chair, the immobility places the person in sometimes a dark room. And we've given chairs to people that haven't seen daylight for 25 years.
Oh, my God.
And they're just wondering. They're asking questions about a park that they heard was built, and no one knows what they're talking about. And finally, somebody who's been around the neighborhood is saying, "Oh, yeah, that was the one they were building 25 years ago. Do you want to go see it?"
Right.
What?
What?
I can see it.
Right.
They've been imagining what it looks like for all these years, and they go out and see the sun.
That's an amazing story, and it's easy to connect to the emotion behind that. And I'm wondering, how do you? A million chairs is a significant accomplishment. Over the years, how do you decide who gets the chair?
Well, one of the smartest things we did, and I think we've had a lot of help from God in making these decisions about what we did, is we decided not to give these chairs away ourselves.
Okay.
We'd give them to mission distribution partners. We call them distribution partners. The majority of them are faith-based Christian partners that are around the world trying to do their mission work. And like I mentioned to you, what happened in India, what they've learned is this allows them to do the work that they started, which could be running an orphanage or a hospital or feeding the poor or, you know, building buildings. But the chair is giving them a reputation in the community, an awareness and an appreciation, because when you give somebody a wheelchair, it is a minute kind of or sometimes just seconds, you change somebody's life.
Yes.
It's very newsworthy, so they get in the newspapers, they get a lot of respect from the governments. And so we give the containers to partners and they decide.
Okay.
So they actually pay dearly for this. Sometimes they have to pay for the whole process of getting the chairs through the customs and duties and transportation and storage, and then selecting the people and then paying for the transportation to get these chairs out. Because these people can't usually come to a center. They have to be brought to the center, or the wheelchair has to go to their front door. But they make these decisions. And we ask them, we want to make sure you give this chair to somebody that's got to be safe. Got to make sure that they're safe in this chair. And that means training. We never thought of that before. Because what would an engineer know about this? But we, you know, along the ways, we've gotten people that really want us to improve, and they've helped us learn how to train a family or the caretakers and how to transfer in and out of the chair, how to do exercises, how to, you know, make sure that the person's comfortable in the chair, and how to maintain the chair.
So do you have a sense for, are these going to children, middle-aged, elderly? Where are the chairs landing?
It seems like in most of the world, the focus is on the elderly.
Okay.
They respect the elderly, you know, Asian cultures especially, this is true. So we don't see as many chairs going to children as we would like.
Okay.
But we don't really have a child chair anyway. We have a chair that's for a young or a small adult. It's only 13 inches wide, which, you know, they have to be probably 45 pounds or 50 pounds to actually fit in that chair. That doesn't mean they are given to children, but we hope we're doing enough training to inform the people how to put pillows or cardboard spacers or something in there so they'll sit straight up. You know how important it is to have your child sit straight up while they're growing.
Right.
So that they, you know, will stand, even if they can't walk. It's still important for them to be able to develop a straight spine and be, you know, and bones. Because,
yes.
And that's what we need a chair to do that.
So I have in my mind that when you were on the show before, you left me with this thought that you were getting people out of the dirt. Is that a fair thing to sort of recall?
Yeah, some countries it's acceptable and necessary to crawl. And literally are getting them out of the dirt. Some countries that's socially unacceptable to be actually out crawling. You just don't see it.
Right.
And they're the sad. You know, it might sound really sad when your listeners hear that crawling on the ground but it's more desirable than not being able to.
Yes.
Because you have no independence at all when you can't. You have to wait for somebody to come move you.
Right.
And so there's a level where there are people who are crawling. That's sad and it's terrible to look at. But then there's another level where they can't get out anywhere. And you may be rescuing them from a hammock, or they may be laying on the ground, or it might be a mat, or maybe it could be even a bed. But whatever it is, you're rescuing them from the situation of being totally immobile.
So if someone listening live here on OC Talk Radio or watching the live feed on Facebook or maybe in the future podcast would like to donate or get involved with your mission, how do they find Free Wheelchair Mission?
Well, the easiest way is on our website. We've got a great website, freewheelchairmission.org. There's no spaces between the letters, freewheelchairmission.org.
Got it.
But we're on Facebook, we're on all the other social media platforms. We're becoming very sophisticated now. It took us a while. It certainly took me a while. And we have opportunities for people in Orange County to get involved with our program. We have actually a marathon coming up at Orange County Marathon. We have a lot of runners coming up, running this coming Saturday and Sunday.
Well, that's a great time.
And with our office in Irvine, we don't give away chairs in the United States because there's options for most people in the States, although there's still a need. But there's still things to do where we could use volunteers in the office.
Okay.
And it doesn't it's not just stamps and folding envelopes. You can donate your talent, which is depending on what your talent is, could be awesome for Free Wheelchair Mission. But it's all comes down to, and one thing I have to tell you, this wheelchair, $80.
Wow.
Is what it costs to have one made, shipped, and delivered.
Wow.
$80. And it's given away totally free. It has to be given away free with no discrimination. Regardless of what your religion, your sex, your age, whatever it is, your nationality, your race, you get a wheelchair if you need one.
That's awesome.
For free.
On behalf of everybody that's listening and doesn't have a voice because they're just listening, thank you for what you've done. This is amazing. 70 million in need. You've made a dent in that at $1 million, and hopefully you will continue this for quite some time to come, and you can come back on the show and tell us about the future successes.
Second million by 2025. That's our goal.
Okay.
And another way I can break this down for listeners, that's half the time it took us to do the first one.
Okay. So you're accelerating.
And it's $7 a month for a year to get somebody a change in their life, which could extend forever.
Right. Well, thank you for being a friend of the program and coming back and sharing an update on your organization. It's inspiring what you're doing, Don.
Thank you for letting me reach out to you, your listening audience.
Obviously, this is something worth knowing about, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you too are similarly moved by what Don said today and maybe become involved in helping his organization with their outreach. And I'd also like to thank Paul Roberts, the engineer for today's show, our producers without whom we could not do this show, Crystal Nunley, Haley Stern, and Joan Park. I'd also like to say, if you'd like to connect with me, LinkedIn is my preferred platform. I'm Richard Franzi, Franzi, and we can start the conversation on LinkedIn and go from there. Also, if you're looking for a good book to read, find Killing Cats Leads to Rats. It's my latest book, and it's about unintended consequences of business decisions, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other fine booksellers. Until our next show, I hope all of your business decisions will move your company in a positive direction.